Imagine a world you wouldn't recognize. 4 billion years ago, this was Earth, a violent, chaotic planet, bombarded by asteroids, its surface a sea of molten rock. Volcanoes spewed gas and ash into a toxic sky, and colossal lightning storms raged endlessly. There was no life, no green, no blue ocean as we know it, just a barren, inhospitable rock. It seems impossible that anything could begin here. But in this very chaos, the seeds of everything that has ever lived were about to be sown. How did we get from this hellish landscape to the vibrant, living planet we call home today? This is the story of our very first ancestor, the incredible journey from non-living matter to the first spark of life. As the young Earth began to cool, water vapor in the atmosphere condensed and fell as rain, a downpour that lasted for millions of years, forming the first oceans. But these were no ordinary oceans. They were a chemical cocktail, a warm, dilute broth of simple molecules: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, the fundamental building blocks of life sloshed around in this vast primordial soup. The atmosphere above, thick with methane, ammonia, and water vapor, was constantly zapped by the raw energy of lightning and baked by intense ultraviolet radiation from the young sun. Each spark, each jolt of energy, acted like a cosmic chef, stirring the pot and forcing these simple molecules to react, to combine, and to form something new and far more complex. It was in this planetary-scale chemical experiment that the first hints of life's ingredients began to emerge. For centuries, this was just a compelling idea. How could we know if it was true? Then, in 1953, two brilliant scientists, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey, decided to put the theory to the test. They built a closed system of glass flasks and tubes, a miniature early Earth in their laboratory. They filled it with the gases believed to exist in the primitive atmosphere: methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapor. They gently heated the ocean to create water vapor, and then, crucially, they zapped the atmosphere with electric sparks, simulating lightning. They let the experiment run for just 1 week. When they analyzed the murky water at the bottom, what they found was astonishing and changed our understanding of life's origins forever. They had created amino acids, not just 1 or 2, but over 20 different types. These are the essential building blocks of proteins, the molecular machinery that does almost all the work inside living cells. The Miller-Urey experiment proved that the basic components of life could arise naturally from simple chemistry on the early Earth. It was a monumental step, showing that the leap from non-living to living wasn't as impossible as it seemed. So we have the building blocks, the amino acids, but a pile of bricks isn't a house. How did these simple molecules organize themselves into something that could be called life? A key property of life is the ability to store information and to replicate, to make copies of itself. Today, DNA is the master molecule that holds our genetic blueprint. But DNA is incredibly complex and needs a whole team of protein enzymes to help it copy itself. It's a classic chicken and egg problem. Which came first, the DNA blueprint or the protein machinery? Many scientists believe the answer is neither. The hero of this early chapter was likely a different molecule, RNA. RNA is simpler than DNA and incredibly versatile. Like DNA, it can store genetic information. But, crucially, some RNA molecules, called ribozymes, can also act like enzymes, catalyzing chemical reactions, including the reaction to copy themselves. Imagine, in that primordial soup, an RNA strand that, by pure chance, could make copies of itself. It would start a chain reaction, replicating over and over, passing on its information. Small errors in copying would create variations, and the most stable and efficient replicators would dominate. This RNA world is a leading hypothesis for how the first system of genetic inheritance got started, a critical step towards true life. Having a replicating molecule is amazing, but it's still vulnerable, floating freely in the vast ocean. To become a cell, this genetic material needed a container, a boundary to protect it from the outside world and concentrate all the necessary chemicals in one place. Enter another simple yet elegant solution: lipids. Lipids are fatty molecules that have a curious property. One end is attracted to water and the other end is repelled by it. When you put them in water, they spontaneously arrange themselves into tiny spheres, called micelles or vesicles, with their water-hating tails tucked safely inside, away from the water. It's like they automatically form little bubbles. It's easy to imagine these lipid bubbles forming all the time in the primordial ocean, and occasionally one of these bubbles might have formed around a self-replicating RNA molecule, along with other useful chemicals. This was a game-changer. Suddenly, you have a protocell, a simple membrane enclosing the machinery of replication. This provided a stable, controlled internal environment, a tiny laboratory where the chemistry of life could become more efficient and complex, protected from the chaos outside. This was the birth of individuality, the first self. From these simple protocells, the path was set for the emergence of the first true living organism. We don't have a fossil of this creature, but by comparing the genetics of all life on Earth today, from bacteria to blue whales to you and me, we can trace our lineages back to a single, common origin. Scientists call this organism LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. LUCA was likely a simple, single-celled creature, a prokaryote, meaning it didn't have a complex nucleus like our cells do, but it was a complete functioning life form. It had a cell membrane, it had cytoplasm, it had ribosomes to build proteins, and it used DNA to store its genetic code, suggesting the transition from the RNA world had already happened. It had a basic metabolism to extract energy from its environment. LUCA was the trunk of the tree of life, the ancestor from which every living thing that has ever existed has branched. It lived, it reproduced, and it began the epic journey of evolution. How do we know life is truly this ancient? We can see the evidence written in stone. In the remote Pilbara region of Western Australia, you can find rocks that are 3.5 billion years old. Within these rocks are strange layered structures called stromatolites. These aren't fossils of a single animal, but something far more profound. They are the fossilized remnants of vast microbial mats. Billions of years ago, communities of microbes, likely cyanobacteria, grew in shallow water. They trapped sediment with their sticky coatings, and as they grew upwards towards the sunlight, they built up layer upon layer, creating these distinctive mounds. Stromatolites are some of the oldest, most direct evidence of life on our planet. They are a physical testament to the fact that billions of years ago, long before the dinosaurs, long before the first fish, our world was already a microbial planet, teeming with life that was actively shaping its environment. And from that single cell, that last universal common ancestor, the grand story of evolution unfolded. For billions of years, life remained microscopic, but it was anything but static. Cells evolved new ways to get energy, including the revolutionary process of photosynthesis, which pumped oxygen into the atmosphere and changed the planet forever. Cells learned to cooperate, forming the first multicellular organisms. This opened the door to an explosion of diversity. Fins became legs, gills became lungs. Life crawled onto the land. Plants reached for the sky. Dinosaurs rose and fell. Mammals scurried in the shadows, and eventually, one branch of primates evolved, the capacity for thought, for curiosity, for art. Every single step in this magnificent, unbroken chain, from that first replicating molecule to the complexity of the human brain, was driven by the simple, powerful engine of evolution. The story of life's origin is a story of transformation, from chaotic chemistry to complex biology, from a barren rock to a living world. It's a journey that spans billions of years and connects every one of us, every plant, every animal, back to a single, humble beginning in a long-lost ocean. It reminds us that we are not separate from nature, but a product of it, shaped by the same fundamental forces that first coaxed life from lifelessness. And perhaps the most awe-inspiring part of this story is that it's not over. Life continues to evolve, to adapt, to create novelty and wonder. We are just one chapter in an immense cosmic story that is still being written. Thanks for watching. If you're as fascinated by this journey as we are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us for more explorations into the wonders of our universe.